Hi everyone, this is John Walker, also known as Jammy the Burb. I've decided to try out making some comic-related YouTube videos since it seems like fun. I'm going to start out with a character video, then maybe do some more, as well as other videos related to my comics. Maybe even some about comic making in general. I'm going to start with the main character of The Back of Beyond, Nathaniel Jones. He existed in some form long before Beyond was created. The earliest form he took was a boy adopted by dragons in a book 14-year-old me tried to write. It never went anywhere, but after some time I tried to write again with a different story. In my second attempt, he was the half-human prince of a fantasy country, very animalistic and frightening, but ultimately heroic. Or he would have been if I ever got that far. It took a while to know exactly what kind of story I really wanted to tell, but when I got into comics and had the idea for a pirate romance, things started to fall into place, and I knew this time I actually had something solid. Planning really helped. I worked on his characterization, and he got renamed to Nathaniel from the string of nonsense syllables he was called before. I chose the name because I'm a big fan of Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, and I just like the sound of it.
No, Nathaniel, no, there must be more to life.
If he wasn't called Nate, he could have been an Arthur. That was one of the few other names on the "this could work" list. Some parts of his backstory were decided right from the start, but others took a while to solidify. Nate was raised by his mother, Annie, in the coastal town of Blackmouth, but also by his father, maternal grandfather, and family friend, Stanza, when he was young. His grandfather died during his childhood, and his father disappeared not long after. Both were lost at sea. When Nate almost drowned trying to find his dad, Annie and Stanza decided it was safer if Stanza was no longer part of his life. They didn't want the sea to seem too appealing. Unfortunately, this worked a little too well, and he had a form of thalassophobia that lasted into adulthood. As he grew up, pressure began to build behind him to go to sea and become a fisherman, just like most of the other men of his hometown. Blackmouth's a place with quite traditional values and expectations, so he struggled because of both his fear of the sea and his sexuality. Nate actually has been in a relationship before Sebastian. That character hasn't appeared or been referenced yet, but I call him Mackerel Jack. Nate fell hard, but Jack broke things off abruptly by telling Nate he might be getting married soon, before he'd even asked the girl. He felt it was time to move on in his life and assumed that Nate could do the same. I think part of the reason Nate first fell for Sebastian was that he had literally no chance, and for a multitude of reasons. Because of that, his feelings were his alone and couldn't be tarnished or taken away. He just admired Seb from afar, maybe building up a slightly unrealistic image of him. But that was challenged quite early in the comic. Design-wise, I wanted to keep things quite simple with him, but everything has a purpose. All of his facial features are a little bit wonky. I wanted him to look quite doofy, not your typical romantic lead. But he's cute in his own way, like an ugly dog. He was originally supposed to have light brown hair, but it didn't work with his shirt, so it got yellower and yellower until it became dirty blonde. I still kind of see it as a sandy brown in my head. From the beginning, I knew I wanted Nate to be kind, likable, and a bit awkward. He was initially going to be grumpier, which can be seen in Chapter 1 to some degree, but that was dropped pretty quick. Because of his demeanor and fear of the sea, he may have come across like he was afraid of everything at first, which isn't really the case. He can actually be pretty reckless. When the situation calls for it, he gets filled with this kind of righteous fury which makes fear just go away. This doesn't always end well for him. He also holds long grudges, and though he can forget about them most of the time, he finds it difficult to let go of the anger he feels towards those who really hurt him. Nate comes across as a goof a lot of the time, but in some ways he has more strength and maturity than others expect, and they don't often see that. By this point in the story, it's clear Nate has something supernatural going on with him, and it does come from his father. I can't say exactly what he is just yet, but there are some pretty big hints as early as chapter 1. I can say he isn't a Mer-like stanza. A number of his supernatural attributes are things I've invented rather than things from real mythology, including his healing factor. His ultra-fast healing is extremely useful. He's never suffered from an illness, and it could help him survive injuries others couldn't, since it gets him out of the danger zone much quicker. It's not flawless though. He heals faster, but only to the same ultimate extent as other people. He does scar, and he can't regrow limbs or anything like that. The reason he wears his earring around his neck now is because when it was ripped out, the split in his ear healed to be separate before Sawbones could put any stitches in. Now it can't be repaired. Nate's magical blood is something that's going to come into play in the latter part of the story, and it's something I'm really excited to get to. That's about all I can think of to say this time. Thank you so much for watching and for reading. See you in the next video or the next update. Bye!